Humble yourself to the light of the moon. You gotta bend down low and humble yourself to the light of the moon. You gotta shine in her glow and we will lift each other up. Higher and higher we will lift each other up. Humble yourself to the spirit of the forest. You gotta bend down low and humble yourself to the spirit of the forest. Don't be afraid to let go and we will lift each other up. Higher and higher we will lift each other up. Humble yourself to the spirit of the land. You gotta bend down low and humble yourself to the spirit of the land. Don't be afraid to let go and we will lift each other up. Higher and higher we will lift each other up. Higher and higher we will lift each other up. Higher and higher we will lift each other up.
Please join me in the chalice lighting word. In the light of truth, in the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Let us settle into our space and open our hearts for worship. Here we have gathered once again, together yet apart. Suspended between ourself and our community, we yearn to gather, we long to be in each other's presence. We are a community built on caring for one another. We are a community stabilized by our connections to one another. We are a community whose foundation is created by love. Although we yearn to be together, we know the distance will not erode our caring, our connections, or our love for each other. With this truth in our hearts, come let us worship together, knowing no matter how we gather, it is a blessing to be together. Please raise your spirit and voice in our opening hymn, Morning Has Broken.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rains to fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the red garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass.
So our service today is about reaching beyond ourselves. It's also about renewal. And when Laura asked me to do a piece, I thought, well, I can do a piece about reaching beyond myself. I could do a funny little piece because I am the least adventurous person you'll ever meet. I like things the same. I read novels over and over again. I watch the same movies. And there's a funny piece of that. And then I got to thinking, why is that? Why am I so risk averse? Why am I so reluctant to take risks, to reach for things? My astrologist friend would say part of it's temperament, and that's true. You know, I'm a Cancer. We stay home. We surround ourselves with comfort. We like things to be the same. But I realized that part of that is also this kind of belief I have that maybe I don't really have the right to reach for things, to have needs or have wants. You know, I don't think my parents or family intended that. They were very kind and generous people. But there was a lot of contention. And I often felt like what I thought or what I felt or what I wanted was dismissed, unimportant, not available. I recently read a poem by Naira Waheed, very short poem. It goes, "I have lost millions and millions of words to fear. Tell me that is not violence." So I learned not to not want, but to keep those wants quiet, to not reach, to not ask for, so that I wouldn't be disappointed or humiliated. And ironically, and not at all surprisingly, I spend my days teaching people how to find their voice and how to reach for things and how to acknowledge their needs. You know, I have learned some of what I need to do to get myself to take risk, to reach beyond. One of those is a little trick that I use often in therapy. It's called trick number 54B. And trick number 54B goes like this. I know that if I tell you that you getting healthier will make your children's lives better and they won't carry the same baggage, I know you will do that. I know you will work hard for your kids, much harder than you would for yourself. And that works for me too. When I got married and I suddenly had 3 daughters to help raise, my life got a lot more organized, and I started putting things together. I also know that if I'm working toward something positive, and that's hard for me, but if I allow myself a want to reach for, I can get myself to take a risk. The other thing that I know, and it's not exactly taking a risk or a reaching, but I know that if I go out into the woods, into the water, that it just calms my soul down. And when I'm in that place of calm, I know myself. I can have my feelings. I can have my own thoughts, and sometimes I can have my own wants too. One of my favorite pieces of writing is by Wendell Berry, and true to my form, you've all heard it before, but I'm going to read it again anyway. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of my life and my children's lives may be, I go lay down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. And for a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Thank you.
rest in the grace of the world and am free. Lynn shared these words from Wendell Berry earlier, and they ring true for a part of what I discovered I needed during my sabbatical. I arrived on the doorstep of my sabbatical limping, hurting, and oh so weary. My spirit was depleted. I found the places to heal in the grace and beauty of the world. As my family and I walked through Armstrong National Park among the tall redwood trees, my soul started to stitch itself back together. And even though when I tried to breathe in the smell of the redwoods, my nose tingled and burned because it was so cold, my healing began. It continued as we reached the ocean and visited the elephant seals and sea lions. I found peace as I watched them float in the water and I listened to the waves crashing around me. The ocean continued to be a touch point for me throughout my sabbatical. Now, I'm not the person who swims in the ocean. Not knowing what is in the water around me is a fear I regularly carry. I think it stems from an uncle yelling "shark" at my sister and I when we were young and playing in the water. Yes, my rational brain knows it would be lovely, and there's nothing to fear, but we do not always lead with our rational minds, do we? Instead, I am the person who loves to walk along the beach with my feet in the sand and the waves rolling into my pathway. I can feel the ebb and flow of those waves deep in my being. What I learned about myself is the pull of the ocean is larger than I knew. I took a couple of tours to see dolphins and whales during this time, and each time I was warned to be careful of seasickness. In my nervousness, I took the motion sickness pills for the first tour and found it was unnecessary. Instead of my stomach roiling and my head getting heavy and my equilibrium off, my heart soared as the waves did, and as we moved further and away from the coastline. As the dolphins jumped around us and the sea turtles lazily swam by, I could feel again my soul stitching itself back together. Soon I was able to not only be healed by my encounters, but also experience the awe and joy of beauty around me. Whales breached, lizards hopped, butterflies fluttered, creeks bubbled, and scorpions retreated. Each encounter was met with a renewed sense of awe and curiosity. Sunsets were absolutely dazzling. Needless to say, I got lost a lot during this time of my travels and had to keep turning around or finding a new path. I was overwhelmed by the beauty and grace of the world, and I soaked it in deep. Right now, each of you are whirling and adjusting to how to be during this pandemic. There is grief for loss of connection, the loss of travel, the loss of family, the loss of income security, the loss of known life events and celebrations. As your life has shifted, you may have realized the harm you have done through your overscheduling or overcommitting. Some of us need to be reminded that even if we are labeled essential workers, there is still healing to be done due to resentment or loss of boundaries for self-care. I encourage you to find those places of healing for you by resting in the grace of the world and looking towards the wisdom of nature. Take the time to let your soul stitch back together so you can experience the beauty and the grace, and let your being soak in it. Ministry is not what harmed me and left me depleted. It was the loss, the lack of good self-care, and the disconnection with beauty and grace of the world. I hope we can remind each other regularly as we continue our journey together to care for ourselves and connect to our natural world.
If We Do Not Venture Out by Marnie Harmony, adapted from the original. If on a starlit night, with the moon brightly shimmering, we stay inside and do not venture out, the evening universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If on a cloudy day, with grayness infusing all, and rain dancing rivers in the grass, we stay inside and do not venture out, the stormy, threatening energy of the universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If, on a frosty morning, dreading the chilling air before the sunrise, we stay inside and do not venture out, the awesome, cold, quiet, and stillness of the dawn universe remains a part of life we shall not know. If, throughout these grace-given days of ours, surrounded as we are by green life and brown death, hot pink joy, and cold gray pain and miracles, always miracles, if we stay inside ourselves and do not venture out, then the fullness of the universe shall be unknown to us, and our locked hearts shall never feel the rush of worship. May it be so.
If we stay inside ourselves and do not venture out, then the fullness of the universe shall be unknown to us, and our locked hearts shall never feel the rush of worship. These words are the words Christina shared with us moments ago and encapsulates the other part of my experience during my sabbatical. When we are tired, weary, and hurting, we tend to turn inward and focus on ourselves, which is very real and valid. And if we stay in that place, we can do harm, especially if we don't venture out. We can do that once healing and renewal has happened. It is important to open ourselves and venture beyond our comfort zones. When I do this in my life, it amazes me the amount of growth that happens. Before sabbatical, the last time that I got to this place where I was able to open myself and challenge my comfort zones and step beyond what I know was when I went to seminary and then into ministry. And it was unimaginable how much growth that experience provided. Now, my travels to Mexico brought not only new learning, such as a new language or culture, but also new awareness of the world. By venturing out, I was brought into the fullness of the universe I did not know. Not only did I gain awareness of a culture and people completely different than my own, but I also bumped up against limitations I didn't even know I had. First, what I learned about speaking a foreign language in its native country is that it's a completely different experience than taking lessons on a computer. The lessons on the computer flow quite well in a predictable order. When you add the human element as well as the different dialects and the speed with which the language is spoken, it is difficult to understand. And still, people were ever so patient with us. During breakfast one day, my friend Karen and I sat at a local booth in one of the many indoor markets. and next to us was an older man, and he took the time to engage us in a conversation. We painstakingly exchanged information, and he was so kind, as well as excited to practice a little bit of English he knew. We still managed to laugh together and talk about what we liked about our meal. I learned the value of community in a very visible way in Oaxaca City. Zocalo is the huge town square in Oaxaca City, and no matter what time of day or day of the week it is, the square is filled with people. At night, the mariachis bands played and people danced of all ages. There were families gathered around with things to do as well as meals to share. The young people walked around the square and talked. Beautiful clothing and items were for sale, as well as delicious food. This was the heart of the community, and you knew it, and you could feel the beat of that heart clearly every time you went into it. I learned the rich history of the people of the area through their food, such as the 7 different moles or the traditional hot chocolate, through the creation of their textiles with natural dyes found in bugs and plants, and how vibrant they were able to get those colors, through the stories they shared of how they made mezcal, or the places they cherished, or the parades for their saints. As I learned this richness, I longed for the same in my own history and in my own country. I definitely learned my limits and where they were pushed while I was in Mexico. I no longer take for granted the easy access we have to water or indoor plumbing. And I realized after waking one night to find a lizard on the wall near me, how much I really loved enclosed roofs with very little room for outside gifts. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself and my ability to resource the world around me on a journey where I did not have all the answers at my fingertips. To get from Oaxaca City to a small town on the Pacific coast called Mazunte, Karen and I had to travel by bus and taxi, and neither one of us could find information for the step-by-step process to make this trip. So we took the leap and decided to go for it, ready for whatever might happen. And although the trip was long and involved the bus passing other vehicles on windy mountain roads, we made it. And boy, was the trip worth it. We found amazing beaches and another group of people with amazing stories to share. If we do not venture out, the universe remains a mystery of a life we shall not know. I was equally challenged in different ways when I attended a week-long Qigong retreat along the California coastline. Unlike Mexico, I did not have any cell service. In fact, my cell phone was a glorified clock. I stepped beyond my comfort zone by sharing a cabin with 2 others I did not know. I was challenged by a new group of people who were not ministers or lay leaders, although it probably would not surprise you to learn that there were at least 3 other UUs in attendance. It has been a long time since I entered a learning community that is new and not church-focused. And to have a week dedicated to a practice that grounded me in my body was such a gift. I learned to push myself beyond my physical limitations and understanding of my body. I learned new ways to connect to energy in the world and to do it with intention. It was amazing to me to learn that energy was connected to the different directions in our world, such as north, south, east, and west. For instance, east is associated with the energy that is curious, waking, or encouraging. South is associated with energy that is resilient, joyful, and creative. West is associated with energy that is grateful, blessing, and abundant. And north is associated with energy that is calm, reflective, and restorative. What's important to know about these directions and the energy they cultivate is that when you want to send a prayer or do energy work or to tap into what you want to know and get answers from in our vast world, to turn in that direction and ask. I learned to cultivate Wuji, which is cultivating a sense of ultimate nothingness or just ultimate being. This cultivation of Wuji is done through a series of repetitive movements that move against and with time. And when we are in person, I can demonstrate sometime. During this time was when I truly felt a freedom I had not felt since I was a child. The one joy that stands out the most of the many was the freedom to walk at night alone without any fear. I could actually enjoy staring up at the stars or hearing the frogs chirp or know that the crack of the branch behind me was not a threat to my being. I truly felt safe and free resting in the grace of the world. I predict we will need to come back to this understanding of deciding how to venture into the world again once this pandemic shifts and we try to resume some type of community living. We will need to stretch beyond our comfort zones and find ways to feel safe again. What we do know is the reward for trying and stepping into the vastness of our world leads to truly amazing and wonderful experiences that allow us to worship and see beauty once again. Thank you for joining me on my journey. I invite you over the next week or so to send me what you learned about yourself and the congregation while I was on sabbatical. We will share those together during our service on May 31st. Let us move into a time of prayer. I invite you into our body prayer where you can stand or sit, whatever you choose. If you choose to stand, make sure your feet are shoulder width apart. And we raise our hands to the sky. We are grateful for the wisdom we have been given. Let us trust the wisdom within us and be open to the wisdom around us. And we drop our hands to the sides, leaving room between our arms and our sides, and we say, we are grateful for the energy we have been given. May we balance that energy within us and around us. May we feed it with positive intention. We raise our hands to our heart area. We are grateful for the love that we have been given. May we know that love within us. May that love expand to those known and unknown to us in this world and in the universe beyond. And we gather our hands together and we say, I am beauty. I am strength. I am love. I am calm. I am wisdom. And we bring our hands together, palm up and palm to the side, and we say to ourselves, whatever resonates, I am love, I am beauty, I am strength, I am wisdom, I am calm. And we put our hands together and bend ever so slightly. We are grateful for the blessings in our life. May we hold them loosely and not take them for granted. Amen. Love be with you on this day and throughout this coming week. Please join in spirit or voice for our closing hymn, We Shall Be Known.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the way. what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please raise your hands in the spirit of connection for our closing song.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stir